June 19th, 1977. The crowd inside the Civic Center in Omaha was restless. The lights dimmed, the murmurs grew quiet, and somewhere behind the curtain, Elvis Presley stood completely still. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, the king of rock and roll, trembling. No one in the crowd could have guessed what was going on inside his mind. They had paid to see magic. They were ready to scream, to cry, to sing. But behind that curtain stood a man terrified. Not of failure, not of fame, but of himself. For weeks, Elvis had been battling exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. His body ached, his hands shook. He hadn't eaten properly in days, and every time he looked in the mirror, the reflection seemed heavier, older, sadder. And yet, the moment the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, "Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Elvis Presley," a switch inside him flipped. The fear, the pain, the doubt, all of it froze in time. He took one deep breath, straightened his collar, and walked toward the light. But as he stepped out, something unexpected happened. The spotlight hit his face, and for the first time in his career, Elvis didn't feel the rush. The noise of the crowd felt distant, almost like an echo in his mind. He blinked, trying to focus. The microphone looked blurry. The sound of the band faded in and out. He thought, what if this is the night I can't do it anymore? Still, he began to sing. C.C. Rider. The words came out rough, almost broken. But the crowd didn't care. They screamed louder, because no matter what he sounded like, he was Elvis. Halfway through the song, he caught the reflection of himself on the glossy black piano. He looked tired, pale. The sweat glistened under the stage lights. For a brief second, he wanted to walk off, just leave. The thought terrified him. He had never quit on an audience. His entire life had been built around one idea. Elvis always gives everything. So he pushed through. But as he reached the end of the second song, his voice cracked. He coughed once, then twice. His hand gripped the mic stand tighter. His band leader, Glenn Hardin, glanced over nervously, but Elvis waved him off. He whispered to himself, "They came for a show and they're gonna get one." The next song was "You Gave Me a Mountain." He poured everything into it, the pain, the fear, the exhaustion, the guilt. Every word sounded like a confession. People in the front rows began to cry. They didn't know why it felt different, but it did. That night, Elvis wasn't performing, he was pleading. Behind the curtain, his manager, Colonel Parker, watched closely. He could see Elvis shaking, struggling, but he didn't move. To Parker, the show always came first. Elvis knew it too. That was the cruel contract he had signed years ago. Body and soul to the spotlight. When the final note faded, the crowd roared. Elvis smiled weakly and walked off stage. The applause followed him like thunder. But as soon as he was out of sight, he stumbled. Two crew members caught him before he hit the ground. His lips were trembling. His heart was racing too fast. He sat on a chair, head down, drenched in sweat. The doctor came running, but Elvis held up his hand. "I'm okay," he said. "Just give me a minute." But deep down, he wasn't okay. He looked at his reflection in the dressing room mirror again. The fear returned. For the first time in his life, he wondered if he'd ever walk back on that stage again. That was his greatest fear. Not dying, not fading away, but losing the one thing that made him feel alive. Performing. The next night in Lincoln, Nebraska, he had to face that fear head on. Word had spread that Elvis had struggled the night before. Fans whispered, journalists speculated, and yet The venue sold out again. Backstage, Elvis sat quietly. His friend Charlie Hodge handed him a towel and a bottle of water. "Elvis, you sure you're up for this?" Elvis smiled faintly. "Charlie, I'm always up for this. Doesn't matter if it kills me." He adjusted his rings, smoothed his jumpsuit, and took another deep breath. The same routine he had done thousands of times, but this time it felt like saying goodbye. As the band started, Also Sprach Zarathustra, the iconic opening theme, Elvis stepped out. The crowd erupted, the noise shook the floor, and suddenly he remembered why he was here. This was his home. The fear melted away, replaced by that old fire. The king was back. He sang with a force that stunned everyone. His voice soared, cracked, and soared again. Every lyric felt like a message to the audience. "Don't give up on me. Not yet." When he finished, he looked up to the ceiling lights and whispered something only the band near him could hear. "Thank you, Lord, for one more night." A week later, he returned to Graceland. He was exhausted, but proud. He had faced his greatest fear and won, at least for now. That night, he sat at the piano in his living room. The house was quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner. He began to play Unchained Melody. His fingers trembled on the keys, but the music flowed anyway. He sang softly, almost to himself, "I need your love, God speed your love to me." He paused halfway, his voice cracking. He smiled sadly and said, "Guess I still got a little left in me." No cameras, no lights, just Elvis, alone with the one thing that had never left him, the music. He had faced fear and found peace in the sound of his own voice. When the song ended, he leaned back and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long while, he felt calm. That was Elvis Presley, a man who had everything to lose, but still stepped on stage every night, giving pieces of himself until there was nothing left. And even when fear tried to stop him, he did what he'd always done. He sang. Because deep down, Elvis knew something the world would take decades to understand. Legends aren't fearless. They're the ones who keep walking even when fear stands right in front of them. That night in Omaha and every night after, Elvis didn't just sing for the crowd. He sang to prove that courage isn't about strength. It's about standing in the light, trembling, and saying, "I'm still here."